Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Cureton, Senior Journalist for XR Today, and we are bringing you the latest and greatest from the VR, AR, and XR industries. Now, today we have on a very, very interesting guest today. We have Mr. Rob Green. He is Senior Manager of Pro AV Broadcast and Consumers for AMD, one of the biggest chip makers in the world. And it's a pleasure to have you on today, Rob. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure to be here, Devon. Thanks for inviting us and hosting us on the call.
Great. All right. We have quite a techie kind of conversation for us today, but it's going to be very, very insightful, very informative. So let's dig right into it. So before we get started, tell us a little bit about your role and what you do with AMD.
Okay, so yeah, my role is, so take a step back, AMD acquired a company called Xilinx. We're very popular for things called field programmable gate arrays and system on chips. So these are hardware programmable devices used throughout the AV industry and broadcast and many other industries as well. So my role, I've been with Xilinx for 20 plus years and now part of AMD. My role is to work with the Pro AV broadcast and consumer vendors to try and explain our product portfolio in terms that they understand and how to use these programmable hardware in the products, and to support the local market in EMEA.
Brilliant. Well, you're the go-to guy for the conversation for today, so we're going to dive right into it.
Okay.
So for the first thing, we've recently had the Integrated Systems Europe 2023 event, which took place, I think it was in Barcelona, was that correct?
It was, yep.
Okay, so there was, from the last year's event, I remember there was a lot going on, and I was actually able to speak to AMD for the first time there. And for this year's event, can you tell us some of the kinds of solutions that you unveiled for the Pro AV systems, and I guess what we call like the extended reality solutions that you've got?
Sure, yeah. I mean, we have a wide portfolio of what we call IP, intellectual property cores, that we can sell into the AV spaces. And for ISE, we really focused on AV over IP. That's one of the main hot topics in the industry at the moment. And on the booth, we were showing 3 different mini networks of AV over IP using different technologies and standards. So we demonstrated Dante from Audinate, the audio over IP standard, for the first time. We've been enabling that technology for many, many years. Audinate have used Xilinx products for a long, long time to implement that. We also showed NDI, Network Device Interface. So this is a hugely popular AV over IP technology that's been used in broadcast, in collaboration environments, and in things like we're doing now, streaming. And also IPMX, which is one of the newest standards that's come out in the market, which is aiming at a more interoperable and standards-based approach, because it's based on broadcast technology, the 702110 standard. So IPMX is kind of the Pro AV version of that. And we've seen a lot of interest in all 3, really. I think there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of different use cases which can benefit from the different technologies we were showing. And from an AR, VR, XR point of view, I think the IPMX demo was probably the most interesting one that we showed, because it was the first time we were showing an LED wall driver. So we worked with Megapixel VR on that demonstration. They were driving a raw tile, which was a proxy for a big video wall. And we know that is something that's of interest for bringing in broadcast quality video content, processing it real time, all uncompressed or slightly compressed, depending on how you want to handle it. And then you can drive video walls that can be the backdrop for virtual production environments. So that's something that is, all across ISE, all of the LED wall manufacturers were showing LED wall backdrops. They were showing floors made of LED tiles, and you can create an environment without traveling anywhere. You can build a studio environment that has whatever you need in the background. And that's got a lot of benefits as well for the talent that are working on the stage. They can see the environment around them. It's not just plain green screens anymore. They can interact with it. They feel the environment. And also the lighting is a bit more realistic as well. So there's lots of technology that we're kind of interfacing endpoints and drivers and video processing that can drive these kind of virtual production environments. So AV over IP was a big part of what we showed. We did show streaming applications as well. So we worked with Osprey Video on H.264, H.265 streaming. We also showed a smart door lock, not relevant to our conversation, but it was something that was pretty cool using facial analysis. We are working more on the machine learning, some call it AI side of the business. So we did facial demonstration as well. And also a tracking demonstration. So we could use a single camera to track heads as they moved around and output multiple HD windows. So that was pretty cool as well. That can be used in meeting room environments, broadcast sports, that kind of thing. And then the final demonstration we had was on a new mezzanine codec called High-Throughput JPEG 2000. So this is a new codec. Well, it's not a new codec. It's actually an old codec, but it's become interesting in the market because it offers lots of benefits. So we showed lots of different parts of what we can do for the AV space.
Like a very, very stellar lineup of different products that you've got, that you've unveiled for this year. And I think that is a testament to a lot of the expansion that companies are making as, companies get more into XR type technologies, as well as, developing for the regular Pro AV, network of solutions across the world. So this is very promising for the future as to how people can develop these solutions. Going further into it, could you offer any updates on the volumetric video partnership that you had with Canon? I remember speaking with the company a few times, and they had some very, very interesting things that they were developing, really, really democratizing new technologies for, independent creators. So tell me, what's going on? What's the latest with that particular development?
So as far as I know, it's deploying very well. I know some of the basketball courts in the US have deployed that for sports production. And for those not familiar with the Canon free viewpoint system, it's effectively taking dozens of high resolution cameras around a stadium and then being able to map that using our technology and Edge AI implementations to create a virtual representation of what's going on the basketball court or the pitch or whatever you want to use it. And once you've done that, you can then put on a helmet. You can use a display to travel through this virtual environment. So as somebody's taking a basketball shot, you can control the camera and put that anywhere in the virtual space. And that's pretty cool from a spectator interactivity point of view, and also, enhancing other areas like branding. You can put that into different virtual spaces. You can stream this in a different way, and you can track your own player as they're playing on the pitch. So there's lots of enhancements, and I think this is a first step. I think there'll be a lot of improvements and rollouts of this into different sports, and it'll become part of the delivery of broadcast sports and live broadcast sports to give it a different feel. We're seeing other technologies as well, similar technologies, using multiple camera arrays, even in meeting rooms. So, being able to stitch 3 or 4 cameras together or many cameras together to create a virtual panning environment means that you can move a camera around the meeting room now, and people that are sat at the far end of the table get that meeting involvement that they would lack potentially otherwise for those people watching it on the screen. So I think volumetric video is part of it. Like virtual production, it's kind of building this high resolution space that people can interact with and can move around in much more freely than the static cameras and displays that we've been used to in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that we've noticed is a lot of different organizations, NBA, the NFL, you have Formula One, they're also tapping into these types of technologies because they want to really put people pretty much in the driver's seat, no pun intended, but they're allowing greater interactivity between the audience, the spectator, as well as the sport itself, giving real-time stats, video angles from any particular point of view, and even being able to replay, on the fly. So this is quite an amazing technology that I think we'll see quite a big leap in progress, as it progresses and as they develop more use cases for it.
Definitely.
So, yeah, very interesting. And also, I just wanted to note that actually uses the Versal AI Core chipset, which is one of the latest innovations that you've created for this to facilitate the whole process. Is there anything? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Is there anything that you wanted to touch up on with that particular chipset?
Well, it's part of a vast portfolio of offerings that we have for silicon that not only does software processing and video processing, but now can do edge-based AI processing as well. So being able to do facial tracking, object tracking, and detection. And it's used in a variety of industries. You know, we focus on the AV industry, but there's a whole suite of applications from surround view and ADAS in automotive systems, into medical imaging systems, and all of this can use these what we call AI engines as part of that. So it's still fairly new. It's still been rolled out the last couple of years or so. So it's still getting to a maturity point. But I think the AI aspect of it is something that we've seen being able to add some kind of extra creativity in the Canon case, for example, but mainly for creating more operational efficiency to do things that you wouldn't be able to easily do in a normal kind of algorithmic environment. So there's lots of different use cases that can be deployed in.
Yeah, definitely. And we're seeing the rise of a lot of these different types of AI chipsets because I remember, if I'm not mistaken, Qualcomm has recently released their Snapdragon AR2 platform, which actually has a dedicated AI chip for managing those types of processes. And we're going to see a lot more proliferation of these as AI becomes, a major vertical for, technology across the board. So
Yeah, and AMD have added this to the current GPU CPU lineup as well. So this the XDNA they call it is part of the acquisition. So this can bring in some of the AI elements that we've developed and put that alongside some of the compute power that AMD are already known about. So that marriage is only going to create more opportunities for innovation going forward.
definitely. I wanted to segue into something, one of your other innovations that you've created. You had the high-throughput JPEG 2000 video codec, which you recently mentioned. And this is a quite interesting solution for AMD because it kind of offers another tier available to audiences to kind of democratize the solution for content creators. Can you tell us a little bit more about how it plans to do that?
Sure, yeah. So I should be clear. AMD didn't develop this core. This was done by our partner Pareto. So we work with lots of different partners to build solutions, but it does run on an AMD platform. And high throughput JPEG 2000 has been quite interesting for a number of people because it's based on a relatively old standard. The JPEG 2000 standard has been around for 20 plus years, so the patents have kind of expired. So that means that you don't need to pay royalties to implement this mezzanine compression. So mezzanine compression is lightweight compression. If you want to put 4K 60 video over a 1 gigabit or a 10 gigabit Ethernet link, this is where these codecs play. And so high throughput JPEG 2000 is something of interest because you don't need to pay royalties to implement it in your application. And that in itself is enabling this democratization, as you said. So there's lower level customers that can't afford to invest in things like JPEG XS or other mezzanine codecs that are out there, which have done a fantastic job. They have a big footprint in broadcast and in AV already. They are interoperable. They are standardized. They have lots of profiles. So I'm not dissing them at all, but there are new and alternative versions, and Pareto have seen an opportunity to go after some of the people that maybe can't afford to implement the levels that some of the other codecs are offering.
Yeah, and that raises a very interesting point that you had to mention about that. For example, there's a lot of different solutions people can create across different tiers of devices. So, for example, like Sony recently released a motion capturing system that allowed people to create their own mocap software and solutions for creating creative content, but it was at a lower tier. So this kind of expands the network that people can use for their own software devices and workflows. So I think this is a very interesting development for the near future. I wanted to ask you, we could talk a little bit about I guess, the main event that we could say for extended reality from AMD, the IPMX. Now, you had lots of partnerships with different companies to create this solution. Could you go a bit further into why these partnerships were needed and what they intended to accomplish?
Yeah, so we worked with a lot of different vendors to create an IPMX demonstration. IPMX is a consortia. You know, the AIMS Alliance is a consortia that's driving IPMX as a standard potentially. So I think having this critical mass of people that are implementing the technology will help it thrive in the industry. And I think IPMX is one that isn't vendor dependent. So you don't have to buy it from AMD. You don't have to wait for a single vendor to determine what that standard looks like. It's done by democracy and typical standardization efforts. It comes from the broadcast world. So people can see that it has a foundation that is working and deploying already in a professional environment. And you can cross between the two industries. That's also important as well. So taking broadcast content and then presenting that in a Pro AV space, that's got value too. And in the virtual production world that we talked about earlier, I think it was important to show that it's not just a connection. You know, it will fade into the background over time because it's an interface technology, but it enables you to really scale and has longevity in terms of being able to support higher resolution video, faster frame rates, real time 8K or beyond for doing virtual production or for driving, potentially driving virtual reality helmet systems. You can plug that into a gaming environment for esports and do KVM kind of operations over that kind of network too. So there's lots of benefits that can be used in deploying a standard which is open and anybody can download and anybody can implement it in whatever technology is appropriate. I think that's its kind of USP.
Definitely. And I think, as we see the development of a lot of 8K resolution displays for people who are especially on the stage or people who are in the news or other types of broadcasting mediums, we'll see a lot more of these people tapping into these types of solutions. And that's where AMD, I think, is a very powerful asset to those types of businesses. So enterprises can, utilize and leverage those types of array of services and products. So I guess to cap things off, anything else that you would like to add about, what's going on with AMD at the moment? I guess, in the XR field especially, but overall.
Yeah, I mean, in the XR space, I think something that we haven't talked about is gaming engines. So, virtual production is built on things like the Unreal Engine. That's driven a lot on AMD servers prior to our acquisition. So there is a lot of work that AMD has done on the gaming side of the industry that can start to roll into things like XR and obviously virtual reality and AR as well. So that marriage of what we've done with FPGAs and SoCs in the helmet to do de-warping and warping of images, tracking of eyeballs for doing real-time compression so that you can transmit that to the server, and then the server doing all of the gaming engine side of it and all the visualization work. That marriage between AMD and Xilinx is now coming together so that we can start to learn more about what each other does and maybe integrate that better going forward. So I think there's a lot of potential there. But it's also in other industries. So we're talking about AV from my group, but I know that our industrial vision and healthcare team, they've got applications like safety helmets in industrial applications where on the visor, they can see what pipes are flowing, what type of chemical, that kind of thing overlaid on top of what they're looking at around the industry. So there's lots of potential, I think, that we can get involved in. And I think the fact that we're now AMD means that we've got access to a lot of the typical server processing performance that we were not necessarily familiar with before. We can marry all of that together. And I think our end users will get a much better experience over time.
Absolutely. Yeah, wonderfully said. Well said as well. So, yeah, thanks so much for joining. And once again, we've been speaking to Rob Green. He is the Senior Manager of Pro AV Broadcast and Consumer for AMD. Once again, my name is Cureton, Senior Journalist for XR Today. And if you'd like to follow more conversations like this, please join us at the XR News hashtag on our Twitter and LinkedIn pages. So once again, thanks again for giving us your insights into the wonderful world of XR and Pro AV. Thanks again. Have a lovely day, everyone, and please join us for the next round. Take care. Bye now.
Thank you.